following is a production of Medfield TV.
Hello Medfield, welcome to the newest version of happenings at the Medfield Town Hall. Our guest today is the usual one, Mr. Sullivan, Michael by name. He's current town administrator. He's going to be here for another couple months anyway, until they throw him out. But he's definitely planning on retirement very soon, and we're going to hear what's going on now and what he's going to do when he retires also. So let's see what's going on first. What's happening now? What's good?
What's happening now?
What's good? You have anything good?
They're scheduling another Medfield stroll, a holiday stroll. You know, the Cultural Council is working. Last year's was very successful. Of course, the weather was gorgeous that night too.
It makes a big difference, yeah.
But that was a big success, and so that's coming up.
Do you know when?
It's early December, I think the first week in December. I'm not sure. It'd be a Friday night, I assume. It's the same. They combine it with the tree lighting ceremonies
Oh, that's right.
now. So.
And I have that written on my calendar, so.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then there's a couple of hearings that'll be coming up. One for 45-unit addition to Tilden Village. I don't know whether you consider that good or bad, but...
Yeah, where exactly will that addition be, Mike?
You know, where the kids cut through to get to the high school when
Yep.
they go down Pound Street, it'll go from Pound Street all the way almost to the driveway at the high school.
Oh, the high school, okay.
So 45 units, I think 4 stories. So I'm sure there will be some concern about the density and the bulk of it. So those people are pretty well impacted now between high school, middle school. It's heavily traveled commuter road, morning and evening. So, the scale of it is somewhat like you head down on Dale Street. It's out of scale with the neighborhood, in my opinion. So, but then what do I know? So,
You going to go to the hearing and speak up?
I will, yeah.
You are a
I'm able
taxpayer.
to. The what?
You are a taxpayer.
I am, that's right, yes, and don't I know it. And I'm also, I understand the water and sewer bills are going out this week, so I'll be a water and sewer bill payer too. So that'll be a surprise as usual to some people. And then the tax bills will go out. They try to get them out in early December.
I asked you for good news, Mike.
Yes, I know.
Tax bills don't quite qualify for...
You're right there. You got me 2 points for you on that one. But they like to send them out early because people would double payment, so they'd pay
It's a good idea, though.
yeah. So
And it's also a good idea before you spend a lot of money in the holidays.
yes,
To know what else is coming, I think.
But you know, now with the new tax law taking effect, people have to make different judgments as to whether it's to an advantage to pay early or not.
Yeah.
What some people do is they double up on their deductions one year and then take the standard the next year.
I know.
So there's going to be a lot of interesting implications from that federal tax law. One of them is if a married couple get about $26,000 on the standard deduction if they're over 65, because you get $12,000 apiece, plus I think you get another $1,300 for being over 65. So it comes to about $26,000, I think. So, but if one of the spouses dies, then that deduction is cut in half.
Of course.
And you go into the single tax bracket. So
Like
your
me.
taxes
Like me.
jump. Yes, yeah. So, and plus if part of your income is probably from pensions, it will be reduced because it depends on where the source of the pensions are. So.
And some of us have no pensions at all.
Yes, yes. So it's has its plus side and its minus side. So you have to really look into it and see what's happening. But Yes, and speaking of which, we just had the October town meeting, not just, but it was for a special town meeting, it was a very high attendance. I believe it was almost 400 people, which is
Mm-hmm.
unusual. So we only made 300 warrant because we've never had that many at a special before.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of issues that brought them out. I think one was the Cultural Center up at the State Hospital. I think Jean Mineo had organized that
She did
very
a good
well
job
to get
organizing
people
it.
there.
A lot of
Yes.
emails.
And then they had the senior housing articles to change the zoning for
Mm-hmm.
senior housing overlay district. And there was one for Council on Aging to continue the Saturday opening programs. So there were a lot of things that brought people to the town meeting, and they approved a lot of things, but they turned down the senior zoning because there were some concerns. You couldn't restrict the affordable housing to Medfield residents. You couldn't restrict the resale price. And so those things, I think, need to be worked out before they go ahead with
I feel very strongly on restricting the resale. Because if I
Yes.
buy a $400,000 house for $250,000, I shouldn't be allowed to sell it for the market price of $400,000.
That's right, yes, yeah.
And I would have felt very
Yeah.
uncomfortable if that had
And
passed.
there are restrictions in place on the 40B projects, but there's no restriction on the on these moderate income.
I know.
And the other problem was that people, if they sell their house, that's considered an asset, and that will put them over the income guidelines. That's why they're not eligible for 40Bs. So this would have to address that. So it's back to the drawing boards, which is probably all for the best.
Yeah, I
So
think it probably is too.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated issue though.
it is, yes, yeah, and not everyone's in favor of it. Most people, in theory, are in favor of it, but unless these other issues can be worked out, I think it needs to be held in abeyance. So the other thing too was it was going to be townwide, so and people could assemble parcels. So if somebody bought 2 or 3 house lots and put them together,
Absolutely.
they could come in with
There you
a
go.
yeah. So, speaking of which, LCB is still hanging out there. They're trying to get that resolved. That's
Some people at home may not know what LCD is.
LCB is it's the assisted living facility that was proposed for behind the Peak House.
Yeah, on Main Street, yeah.
Yeah. So it's DEP has overturned the local conservation commission on whether it was a seasonal brook or intermittent brook,
Okay.
or a year-round brook or a seasonal brook. So the conservation commission has appealed that decision and is hiring an expert to come out, and expert hydrologist to take a look at it and see what evidence there is.
I'm very much in favor of assisted living places here in Medfield, though.
I
really
am too. Again, it's putting them in the right location, scaling into the neighborhood, and but then there's also the question of they were turned down on the special permit, so that's under appeal also. So,
Right.
so that's a ways off yet. So
How long has it been going on? It's a good couple of years, 4
I'd say
years?
at least I'd say about 2.5 to 3
2.5,
years.
so maybe even
Yeah, would be
longer.
my guess. So again, more happy issues, not so.
You gotta have something good.
Yes. Well, I did give you the holiday stroll. That was good. So, started out strong, didn't just fell apart. So.
And Knowles and Dover haven't declared war yet.
No,
Not yet.
no. They are supposed to do some work. I think it'll be next spring, obviously now, before they get going on it on the 109 bridge.
Oh, that's a
because
good
we
idea.
have warned them about that for several years, that it needed
Sure.
some work, and that definitely is a state bridge. I think the West Street Bridge should also be considered a state bridge too, because it's a
I know
commuter road.
You've worked on that.
Yeah, it's silly that they would consider that a town bridge when it does, I think it handles over 8,000 cars a day.
Yeah.
And you know they're not going to buy hot dogs from the hot dog man, 8,000
That's
cars.
right.
So.
They're not all going to Medfield Mill, it's just going through.
Yes, yes. And then they can spend $200 million fixing a bridge between Boston and Cambridge. That's okay.
course.
And they still didn't get them Amazon headquarters. So thank God. I can imagine what it'd be like with 50,000 people moving into the area. Where would you put the housing?
Now, the Warren Committee
here.
met with the selectmen the other night. Is their news any better than it's been in the past?
It's pretty much the same. It's the annual budget kickoff meeting, and they're trying to get the budgets in early this year. I told them I'd stay another couple of weeks to try to put together a preliminary warrant, so I didn't dump that in Chris's lap when I left. They have hired Chris Cherwell, my assistant, as my replacement.
A good choice, I think, as you know.
Yes, and she's been here 19 years, I think, so she's pretty well got the lay of the land down.
And she put up with everybody.
She does, yes.
Including me for many years.
And she handles the labor negotiation. She works well with the department heads.
'Cause I think she was a unanimous choice when we appointed her, I think so. I think she was
I
unanimous.
believe she was, yeah. You can remember back that far, huh?
Well, I was sitting there at that point.
Yes, you were.
Remember, our only concern would the rest of the town hall staff pay much attention to a woman boss? And it turned out, yes, they do.
Yeah, they do, yes.
They,
yeah.
they like her, they respect her, and they get along with her. So.
Yes. She's firm but fair. So,
She is.
And if you can handle labor negotiations, you can handle just about anything.
You're right.
Plus, her background, her master's is in planning, so she's got that end of it covered
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
So
Oh, she'll do well, I think.
we have a new building inspector starting, or building commissioner, I guess they call it now, December 1st.
And who's this?
I actually don't know his name. He's
Mr.
coming
X.
from Millis, I believe. So,
Okay.
But that'll be good because we've gone through 2 building inspectors in the last
I know,
year, so it's
surprising.
tough with this housing boom. It's tough. We have a lot of major construction projects in the work. Major for us, maybe not for
Yeah, but still,
Boston or. But we have the daycare center that's going up on 27. We have that affordable 16-unit apartment complex next to the Goddard School. We have 34 units planned for Dale and 27. And then if this one down by Tilden Village goes, that would be 45 units. So I don't know. It's good that we can get someone on board, and it took a while, but everybody's looking. There's such a low unemployment rate now. It's hard to get people to fill slots.
any idea how much the people at Tilden Village, the residents there, cost the town? Is there any way to figure out what they actually impact on the town budgets are?
I don't think it
I
would
would
be a
think
big
minimal, but
impact. I think, yes. I think, because Tilden Village is a state-funded,
Right.
basically. What the rents don't cover, the state covers. So it would probably some ambulance where we don't get the full reimbursement on an ambulance run. But other than that, very little.
Oh, that's what I would have thought, okay.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me to ask you, so I did.
Yeah. This will be a little bit, this is going to be all apartments, so we would get credit if they built all 45, which I hope they don't, but if they did, then we'd get credit for 45 units under 40B. I still think that we have to face up the fact that we need to do something up the state hospital to get to our
absolutely.
10%. That's the place to put it instead of putting
I agree.
out-of-scale developments in residential neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So,
I agree very much.
but we've been lucky so far. Now I understand Norfolk and Sherburne and Wellesley and are getting bombarded with 40B applications. So, and they're big ones, 250 units, and they're definitely out of scale with those towns. So, but they thought they were safe because they didn't have water and sewers in most parts of the town. But now they have packaged sewer treatment plants, and and I don't know. Well, I guess they can put sink wells or whatever, or tie into the town's water system if they're willing to run the lines to it. So,
any idea when we'll be voting for the state hospital?
Ask me in 10 years and I might have an answer. The trouble is, all these public hearings they ask everybody what they'd like to see up there, and they came up with 15 different responses, and everybody's now committed to their particular plan. But they never asked the second part of the question, which is, and how much are you willing to raise your taxes to
subsidize?
Yes, because that would make a big difference on people's opinions of what should be done up there. So, and of course, I take a very unpopular position. I think there's nothing up there that a bunch of sticks of dynamite couldn't take care of. I think those buildings they may be attractive in the layout and the architecture, but they're not suited for modern day energy, health code, safety code issues. And you can always replicate the quadrangular housing arrangement with modern architecture. Modern architecture doesn't have to be ugly. It can be attractive as well. So, but some people want to see nothing up there. They just want to tear everything down and go back. Some people want to have the state's largest dog park up there. I think you can do something decent and still keep a lot of open land. And we already have probably about 500 or 600 acres up there anyway between, McCarthy Park and the 36 acres, all the sledding hill and all land along the river that the state still owns. So it's not that there's a shortage.
I know.
So.
And we're losing Steve Nolan, who's been running it for a long time.
Yes, unfortunately, the Nolans are going to be relocating. Steve resigned from the Board of Appeals, and he was just a gem.
He is a gem.
Yes.
And his wife Maria is a gem also.
Yes.
She's helped on several issues.
Yes, yeah. She was chairman of the Energy Committee for a number of years.
I know.
So.
It'll be hard to replace Steve in particular because he's donated so many hours.
Yes,
you can't imagine how many hours.
And he had the patience of Job.
Absolutely.
He just was unbelievable how calm and relaxed he would be when people were screaming and,
Because I've been on several committees with him and I was always impressed.
Yes, yeah. So, but their kids are all grown up and moved away.
So who are they going to replace him with if they can possibly try?
Well, they've had, they have 3 members and 3 associate members now, although they did lose another one recently too, moved to Florida, so.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. Usually there's people that will come forward and step up to the plate. So. We did have one spectacular piece of good news.
Okay.
Matt O'Coin is a MacArthur Fellow.
Really?
Yes, 26 years old.
Wow.
It comes with a unrestricted $625,000 grant for 5 years.
Oh.
And you can do anything you want with it. If you want to travel around the world, if you want to sleep late mornings and quit your job, there's no restrictions on it. And it's one of the most prestigious awards you can get. And you never know, you can nominate anyone for it.
So who funds it?
It was a MacArthur family, I guess, that whoever they were, I don't know, but
I don't know who that's. I'm wondering.
They give so many awards out a year, and you never know what kind of people or what their backgrounds are, what their interests are. They can be a poet, or they can be a nuclear scientist, or they can be an environmentalist, or a housing advocate.
It could be anything.
Yeah, but that's a really great thing for the Medfield school system. Of course, I think the family lived in Natick, I think, when he was born, but they've been here because his mother works in the library. So, but that's quite an honor for
That
them.
is quite.
Yeah. I happened to be in the barbershop getting a haircut one day when he came back to meet with some of the kids at the high school and give a presentation, and he was in the other chair. So I said, "Are you the guy that's running around town giving the lectures?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I caught my own hometown."
Oh.
So I said, "Well, your picture's been all over the newspaper and every place the last week
That's
or
great,
two."
though.
So yeah. So. So what else is going on in town?
Someone told me that Tim Bonfatti was retiring.
From the school committee,
That's
he
what I
did,
heard.
and they've had an election and appointed, it was a woman they appointed to replace him.
He's another good man.
Oh, but he's staying on the building committee,
I hope so. And
And
is he
he's-
staying on the housing trust?
the housing trust,
Good,
yes,
because I'm on that.
Because those are the two interests he wants to pursue at this
Good,
point,
okay. So we won't lose him totally.
no.
Because he's a real asset too.
He was a real asset. I don't think, behind the scenes, I don't think people realized how many things he did. And,
Yeah.
you know, he was a big advocate for bringing in the facilities manager and for funding the municipal buildings maintenance fund, so or stabilization fund, I guess it's called. So, which is to me critically important to the
Yeah.
town. All these new buildings we built, and the old buildings that are around and that need to be kept up. And the problem historically has been you spend a lot of money building the buildings, then you let them fall apart. And the way it used to work with the state, particularly with the schools, it was cheaper for the town to let them fall apart than to fix them
Remember
up.
you're saying that here.
Because like we used to get 63% reimbursement, many of the cities got 90%
For
reimbursement.
new construction.
So why would you spend money to maintain the building
Yeah,
when you
and-
can just let it fall down and then go to the state and say, we need a new building? And they'd give it to you. And they ran up $8 billion in debt doing that. So this new system, we've dropped down to 34.84%, which most people call 40%, but for some reason in their formula we come out with 39.84%. So they are still working with the School Building Assistance Bureau on the Dale Street School Study. So that's they have to hire a consultant to do an analysis of all kinds of information that I would think would be readily available already.
Okay.
And that'll cost somewhere up around $1 million to do borings and soils tests and enrollment projections, and there's a whole slew of things that they want to know before they will agree to fund it. So.
What's your fear about the tax rate, considering what we spent not in fiscal 18, but in the year 2018? We spent a lot of money.
We did, yeah.
How much is it going to impact us on our tax rate?
Well, you've already felt it, because when the assessors set the tax rate, they try to, the first two bills you get are estimated bills.
Okay,
The
the
actual
final
tax
zero?
rate isn't set
Okay.
till the end of November. And then they try to get the bills out as quickly as possible for the February. So the February and the May bills are actual, based on the actual tax rate. But the assessors have a pretty good handle on exactly what's been voted at town meeting, what the cherry sheet figures are, what the local receipts are. And they try to include all of that in the estimated tax bills so that you don't get a big bump
Good.
in the February bill. So other than the impact of reval, it should be similar to what you've got for your August and November bills. Now, next year is a different story, and that's why when the warrant committee and the selectmen met for the annual budget kickoff, they want to have everything in early. And I know they say that every year, and they never quite get all the budgets and the articles in. But we're hoping that after all the money we spent last year, we won't be spending as much this year. But
Oh, gosh, I hope
never
not.
know. Yeah, yeah.
It's scary.
It is. And, you know, it's, for many people moving into town, it's not a big burden, especially if you got kids in the school system. You know, they move here to put their kids in the school system, and so they don't seem to mind paying as much,
No.
especially if it's related to schools or park and rec. On the other hand, for people at the other end of their working careers whose incomes are not rising as much, or in some cases have been flat for years, or they're retired and don't have pensions, as you pointed out. So that can be a real problem.
Yeah.
So, and many of those people, unfortunately, are voting with their feet and moving to other towns or other areas of the country. So,
Oh.
which is too bad. When you've lived in a place for 30 or 40 years, you get kind of attached to it.
Mm-hmm. I've kind
It
of got,
becomes your home. Yes.
I'm over 50 years here. I am
Yes.
very attached to the
Yes.
place.
Yeah.
I am, as you are.
Yep. Yeah. I know. 44 years I've been here. So. Oh, 43, because I didn't move here. I had a lease on an apartment in Cambridge for 6
Oh, you
months.
lived on Main Street for a while, that's right.
Yes, right across from Laura Smith's old house. Or the Crawack's house now, I should give it.
I know, but I keep thinking Laura Smith when I go by.
Yes, yeah. So it's, the Park and Rec has received proposals for their study. You know, they get $150,000 that was passed as a capital override, which is a capital override. It's a 1-year increase in the tax levy. And then at the end of that 1 year, it disappears. It's like when a debt service exclusion is voted at the end. When the debt's paid off, that disappears. So they put out an RFI,
RFI, okay, for interest, yeah.
RFP, I guess, so for consultants to do a study.
Okay.
And now under the new changes, that will have to be handled by the Permanent Building Committee.
Okay.
Because the bylaw now that was passed last year requires any project, I think over $1 million or $1.5 million, to be vetted by the Permanent Building Committee. Now they still have to refer their recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for approval, but they will do all the legwork on it and interview architects and project managers. You have to hire a project manager first, and then the project manager helps with the selection of an architect and with all the other things that need to be done to, if there's land acquisition or if there's something else along those lines that needs to be done, they will handle that. So, which is good because they have the expertise. They've got 2 project managers, an architect. Oh no, the architect's on the warrant committee.
Are they looking at a specific site for the Park and Rec?
They want to put it up at McCarthy Park, the Sledding Hill, up
Okay,
on
that's what
Sledding
they're
Hill,
still
that
thinking,
land,
okay.
yes. Well, some people feel it should, if they're going to move the Dale Street School, they should convert that into a Park and Rec facility, tear down the old part back. It's actually the new part, but the old school was much better built, and tear down the FAF Center, and it would create some extra field space for them, and they have sort of a gym, they could perhaps put another gym in, and it would be much more accessible to kids that
definitely
weren't in
would.
the center of town, and it's accessible to swim ponds, so you
Kids
don't
could
have
walk
to
there,
bus
could
the
bike
kids
there.
down there,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see. I'm glad the building committee will have some input into that, because I think that's an important decision. Because then if you don't use Dale Street for that, what do you use it for? Some people would say, how about affordable housing? So who knows? I'll have to worry about those, but as a private citizen, not as a town official pretty soon, so.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be different. I was kidding somebody. I said, I hope the day after I retire there's a snowstorm so I can look out the window and say, let it melt. So, but that's a lot of what's been happening in town. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We have water and sewer we did empty the Mount Nebo water tank and change there was a defective the circulating pump at the bottom of the well that circulates so the water doesn't stagnate and you're not always taking the water from the top. And the company that put it was still under warranty, so they had to replace it, although they didn't extend the warranty. There was only 5 months left on the warranty, but at least we got the installation done under the warranty. And now they are looking at hiring a consultant to tell them what needs to be done in terms of whether the inside needs to be painted. Most people don't realize with a water tower, you don't only paint the outside, you paint the inside, and it has to be special paints that are,
I bet you.
that won't pollute the water.
Sure.
And sometimes you can touch it up, but because it's inside the tank and it doesn't get damaged the way the outside would. On the other hand, if kids throw rocks at it and dents it, you might have peeling and flaking, and you have to paint the inside, which is very expensive. Painting the outside is very expensive because it all has to be done on a surface that is not very amenable. It's not like you can put a ladder up against it, paint it, and the bottom part is probably probably the whole outside is going to be sandblasted. So it costs $476,000, I think, to build that. It'll probably cost $1 million plus to paint it and sandblast it and paint it and touch it up. So.
And if we didn't do it, the cleanup would be even worse.
Exactly. Yeah. So luckily we have the new water tower up the hospital in place. Otherwise, we'd have a really difficult problem because we wouldn't be able to maintain the pressure.
Sure.
In the system. But by having that one up there, we can do it in the off season, do it in the spring or the fall when, the spring is the heavy water use.
There's still some people in town, there are private wells, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Any idea? Very few, I would think.
More than you would think, so I bet you probably have, I wouldn't be surprised if we're in the hundreds. Some use them exclusively for sprinkling outside watering, but some areas don't have water. I was thinking there's a little area down on, I guess they do have it now, off Causeway Street. There was when they rebuilt the bridge, they looped the water through across the causeway.
Oh, that's right.
So they would have access to water now. Whether they get it or not, I don't know. So there is sewer down there because that interceptor crosses. By the way, that was another positive thing. Maybe we can end on a positive note. There was a resident of Bridge Street that passed away last year, and she left in her,
nice one. I didn't know
will
her.
that 11.8 acres of land to the town to be kept forever in a wild state, and it goes from Bridge Street down to the Charles River. So it was quite a generous gift on her part. So the town meeting had to accept it, and that was one of the articles at town meeting. So, that's a nice another little link in the whole system of open space that we have that contributes so much to the character of the town.
What percentage of the town has public sewer available? Any idea roughly?
Well,
75?
It depends on how you define access.
Meaning it's in the street and you can plug in if you want.
Yeah, and there are some areas that don't need it because there are no
That's
houses
true.
there, a
But
lot of
just access,
conservation land.
Not whether they need it, but access.
I'd say probably about, my guess would be about 2/3 of the town has access to sewer.
Quarter, so not far away then.
Yeah, So it was, you know, you don't have areas like Hartford Street, Causeway. The Causeway on the other side of the river doesn't have an Indian Hill. No, Indian Hill 3 does have it, but I'm sure there are other areas that somebody just say, but what about that area? So I apologize to anyone's neighborhood I missed.
No, I was so glad when it went by my street, because as you know, we had a big problem in our yard.
Yes, you did. Boy, they've done a gorgeous
Well,
job
it was a very
on
old
your
house, and they
yeah.
had put the old septic, the old cesspool actually,
Yeah.
right near an underground stream. So guess what happened? Before us, there were only small families, but then when we moved in with 6 kids, it was a very different.
And then when you threw your parties,
We threw
the
quite a few
July
parties. We
yes,
hired
yes.
porta potties. We always had
Porta
those.
potty, yes, that was a good idea. So.
We had to.
Yeah.
We had to. I was so glad when the sewer went by. Oh.
Yeah, but that's the other interesting thing. A lot of the remodeling going on these days. Your old house, the house at the corner of a kitty corner to that, they've done a very nice job on that.
Yeah.
And it's happening all over town. There are some where the Parkers used to live at the corner of Metacomet and South Street. They picked up the Parkers' house, moved it out towards South Street, and put another house in.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I was so surprised when I saw that, because I knew the
Yeah.
Parkers.
Yeah. And then on Main Street, they bought another house and changed the lot lines around. We were able to get another house lot in there.
Where the Gillises were, next to
Yes,
the Gillises'
yes,
house. Yes.
Yeah. So what was one house there is now 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the first house that was built and is now occupied is very attractive, and the new one that they're putting up seems to be attractive. The land that we had the opportunity to buy down on High Street, the Lucy's sister's land, that was turned down by town meeting
I remember
because
that.
on the advice of unnamed parties, they were told only to sell it to the town for conservation. And the selectmen decided, well, someday in the future we might need to do something down in that end of town, and so the town meeting turned it down, and now there are 3 houses being built down there. They really leveled the site. They've taken down almost every tree on the site. You know, it'll probably be okay when it gets done now, but it looks like a mess right now, especially with all this rain and mud and everything.
Yeah.
So, but they started framing the first of them. I don't know whether they've got all 3 foundations in, but they've started framing in the first house. So, the amazing thing, I think, is we have about 49% of the land area of the town protected, either through the town, the Army Corps, the trustees of reservations.
We bought a lot of land up in town meetings for a while. Seemed like every year we had another couple of purchases.
And that's been one good investment.
Yeah.
I think we only have 2 or 3 more years left on the Holmquist land and the Wallingford land down on Plain Street.
I still remember buying that. That's the biggest town meeting I ever saw my whole life. I never saw that many people there out in this.
That was the second biggest.
I don't know how many even checked in, Mike, because when we finally turned out there, people were still out in the street.
Oh, yeah, I think
They
there were
weren't even in
11.
the parking lot. They were beyond the parking lot.
I think there were 1,100.
They said they never even checked in.
Um,
They couldn't get in.
But we had one that was 2,315, I think it was, on the school construction when
Right.
the override failed by 15 votes or something.
I often wonder if
25
there's
votes.
other people at the Holmquist time had been able to check in, if how many there would have been. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But I
yeah.
still remember them out in the street.
Yes, yes. And that was a very nice,
It was a very positive.
yes.
It really
The
was.
Holmquists have done a lot for the town that people don't realize how they sold land to the town at very good prices.
They
and
did.
So,
He was a very nice man.
yes, yes. We've had so many generous people like that. If you look at the Goldthwaits that donated
yes.
Rocky Woods, all that land up
Yeah.
there that could have been developed. And then I think it was some For those of us older, remember Elliot Richardson? I think it was his
Another one.
uncle's land that was donated to the trustees of reservations. That was a good chunk of Noon Hill.
So some people with a lot of money are good people. We can't yell at them.
They are, right?
Some of them are very good, very thoughtful.
Yes, yes. And it makes you wonder if you hit that lottery ticket, would you be as generous as they were?
Oh, you know I have a shopping list of what I'm going to do. Not a shopping list, but a giving list that I've got set up for my...
That's because it's what they call it, plausible deniability.
My
you're
kids
never going
laugh
to
at
win.
me, but
Yeah.
I told them I was going to set up a family trust and they can all vote on these different things. But I have a whole list
Oh,
of
you
things I'm
want to
going
set
to
it?
do.
You want to set off a tribal warfare in your family?
No, I'm going to have a nice thing so that everybody agrees on what we give.
Oh yeah, give
I
it
think it'd be wonderful.
give it a couple of generations.
No, and I
So-
think it'd be wonderful to have the money to give, though.
Yes, it would
I
be,
think it
yes.
feels so fantastic,
Yes.
being able to do that.
As long as you give it for good causes.
Absolutely.
Some people get kind of kooky with their bequests and they start giving it to
Yeah.
strange organizations, and so
Oh, no, got some good ones, though.
I've come to the conclusion that I'd rather give to small local organizations and these big institutional organizations.
Oh, definitely want to give to the Shriners Burn Center.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I remember when my cousin was a doctor, and oh, my God, he let us go in to look. I thought, I am so lucky that none of my kids ever had to go through that.
Yeah.
I think of that with all the fires in California, too.
Yeah.
How many people that end up with that kind of injuries.
Injury, yeah. You don't realize, when you start feeling sorry for yourself and you look around and see what other people are dealing with, you say, what's my problem? What?
It's been a long time since we had a bad fire here, I think. I can't remember the last bad one.
No, I don't know.
It's definitely been a good time.
I think there was I remember there was a fire a couple of years ago where I used to live on Main Street, but that was knocked down. The fire department
Oh, yeah,
got
that's true.
there
It
very
was,
quickly and knocked that down. We used to have a lot of fires along the railroad tracks when the trains would shoot out sparks and light off the woods. And that's one of the interesting things about these fires out west. Everyone says, oh yeah, but it's hot, but it's not humid. Well, it's the low humidity that's one of the major factors in causing these fires, because it's so dry. A little spark can set off an enormous fire. So maybe when we're sweating next summer, we can appreciate that we have high humidity and that it protects us in a way that...
But our new fire chief is ready. Do we have a new police chief yet? Must be getting close.
They have acting police chief John Wilhelmi.
I know, yep.
And they're setting up an assessment center, but we've had so many hiring decisions to go through between building inspector, facilities manager, town administrator, fire chief. It's been a succession of hard to fill positions in many cases. So mine was easy. You just go out on the street and drag somebody off and you can replace me. So, no, but Chris will do a great job. So. And it does get more and more complicated. Just the whole technology part of the business now is getting very complicated.
Very, very different.
We've been hacked 2 or 3 times, and luckily we're able to limit the damage from them, but it's one of them, they get into the vendor system, and we're charging things, ordering things online. Then the bank that held the vendor account was able to stop, and so we didn't lose it. I think there were 8 checks or 8 orders that had been put in. I think they were checks. They were doing it by check, and they were able to put stop orders on all the checks. But everybody's having that problem these days, from the White House to the Pentagon to the banks, insurance companies, entertainment facilities. It's just, and so much of it is done from overseas. They can't get access to them.
Sure.
I'd say any country that won't send these people back over here for trial, cut off their foreign aid, cut off their trade. Don't let them bring anything in. But of course, that's not a popular position. So Well, anything else? We've probably blown right through our time limit anyway. So. And,
No good news to end up the show?
Well, I had some good news for you. I told you about the 11.8 acres. I told you
Yep.
about the MacArthur Fellowship. I told you about the holiday stroll.
Yep.
So there's some good news.
It's a little bit of good news.
Yes.
And nothing really bad.
Nothing that we haven't dealt with before
Correct.
that we can't
And-
deal with again.
And nothing we can't manage for a while.
Yes, yeah. If only we could find a better way to fund education statewide, it would be an enormous help to
Oh,
towns
would
like
it ever.
Medfield that are struggling. But the big cities under the education reform funding are finally to make out on the system, and the what they call the gateway cities, they're all doing well by it. So they have the numbers, and they're not about to change the funding mechanism. The only way to do it is the courts, and the courts don't want to. It's a hot potato for the courts.
Sure, of course it is.
So, but that's our biggest problem is, Proposition 2.5 was passed in 1980, and the promise was it was going to relieve the burden on the property tax. Well,
Didn't
we
work.
fund a higher proportion of our expenditures now from the property
Yeah.
tax than we did back in 1980. So it may have helped the cities, but it
Didn't
sure
work
didn't help
us.
the towns.
Right.
And of course, now there's a big push at the state level and the federal level to change the zoning to strip local communities of their zoning authority.
But now that you're retiring, you can run for state rep or senator.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
And
just
then you
what I
could
want.
win, you could change everything, right?
Right, in 6 months, I'd get
I'm
in
sure
there
you
and
could.
whip them right into shape. So maybe I could get a new building paid for by the
That's
state's
right.
capital budget.
Have lunch and a few drinks with Charlie Baker, or maybe you can work something out.
Well, what was interesting is I didn't realize this. Both of the candidates for governor have ties to Needham.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Charlie Baker graduated from Needham High School.
That I know.
And Gonzalez, I believe, lives in Needham,
Oh.
I think. Because I saw him being interviewed, and he mentioned Needham a couple of times. So, so I said, isn't that strange that a little town is really
is
vaulted
fun.
into fame? They also had Allie Raisman from there. So
So then you can't run because you didn't go to Needham High School.
that's right. Yes,
You're out of
yes,
luck.
yes. I did go to a very fancy-sounding high school, though, in Bradford Matthew Challenger Durfee High School,
It does sound fancy.
which is the public high school in Fall River.
I know what it is.
But no, it was in a spectacular turnout. We had in Medfield, we had about a 70% turnout for this election,
Good.
which we never get. We've had special elections where we get under 300 people. So
No, I wanted to go, no question about it. And the early voting helped, I think. Helped a lot of people.
I think of the early voting and the absentee voting and the get out the vote drives that were incessant with the phone calls and I'm a friend of Charlie Baker's or I'm a friend of
I'm an
Jay
independent, so I got a
Gonzalez.
lot of phone calls.
Yes, I'm an independent
Yeah.
too, so you get them from both sides. So, but at least now we don't have to listen to those incessant commercials now.
Yep, that's right.
And every time you go to your mailbox, you get another glossy photograph of somebody running for office with their family, surrounded by their family. Or,
With the dog at their feet, yep.
yes,
All that.
yes. And the American flags
Yeah.
behind them. So.
So not too much doom and gloom as you usually have, but not exactly all smiles yet, so not bad though.
Yeah, I'll be
Not bad.
smiling the end of January. I'll have a big smile on
When
my
you
face. Yes,
And when you do your last show here,
yes.
then maybe we'll drag you in afterward.
Sure, I can become what do they call it, a emeritus reporter or something.
Sure, you
or
could do the
yes,
interviews.
Somebody said, you've been there 44 years? I said, yeah, that just means I'm old. So. And that's the other line I use now. People say, do you mind getting old? I say, I'm not getting old.
I'm already there.
Yes,
I'm
old.
older,
Yeah,
older.
I'm old, yes. So,
Okay, well, thanks,
well-
Mike, for coming in one more time, and we'll see you again in December.
I hope to be back.
And maybe we'll
so,
see you in
yes.
January. We'll wait and see how it goes.
Yes, yeah.
But you at home, thank you so much for watching Medfield TV. I hope you keep listening. And if you have any ideas of people to be interviewed, please send me an email at annmedfield@verizon.net. And I would be more than happy to call them and see if we can work something out, because we always want to have somebody interesting on the show that knows a lot about Medfield, as Michael does, or knows a lot about something else, fishing, tackling, dancing, movies. It doesn't matter if they have something interesting to talk about. So give us a call.
And you've had some interesting, you had Mike Marcucci, I understand, did a great job.
He did a good job.
And have you had the superintendent on yet?
Not yet.
Not
No,
yet.
he's
Okay,
getting
he'd
ready.
be a good
he thinks.
one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for watching Medfield TV, and tune in again next month.
The preceding was a production of Medfield TV.